The GMCC15 is the 7th conference on coexistence in international supply chains. We like to get a better understanding about the economics and benefits along the whole supply chain, from research over cultivation, processing, retailing, final consumption, who is benefiting, who is losing. We use this as a platform to discussing aspects and policies that are related to the use of GMOs. And whether you're against or in favor of GMOs, within that debate doesn't matter so much. We take GMOs as a reality, and what we are interested in, what are the consequences of these realities?
Ladies and gentlemen, it's really an honor to be here, to open this conference on this extremely interesting theme. These kind of issues are really critical and are also heavily debated. So what we saw in our university I think it was 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, active students organizing themselves against GM food and food crops. And by that they make social reality. So in that sense also I think it's very crucial to combine studies from different disciplines, but also engage proponents and opponents to GM foods. And in our university we always call that moving more to transdisciplinary research. Having said that, I wish you a very enjoyable conference. Thank you very much.
Coexistence is about free choice. The possibility to choose between products that contain GMOs and between products that do not contain GMOs. But excluding one or the other, we see as being not something that is really supporting coexistence.
Almost everyone agrees that we need to feed more people and we need to increase production by 30 to 50%.
We have GM now for 25 years. Did it make a difference? And the answer is yes. We adopted it only on few crops, corn, soybean, cotton, and it's only used on 25% of the corn in the world, but it increased supply by about 10%. It reduced prices by 15%. And the fact that it reduced the price of corn by 15% and the price of soybean by 25%, the price of cotton by 30%, it allowed poor people to have better food security.
We have a world that is divided between 1 billion people that live very well and another 6 billion people that don't live very well.
The billion people can eat organic. They can eat whatever they want. They don't need GM. But to feed the other people and to deal with climate change, we need all the tools that we have.
So I think altogether, when we look at coexistence, we have to think about efficiency, we have to think about fairness, and we have to think about making policies that are not only good for us, but for the rest of the world. Thanks.
Another very important issue is the issue related to new breeding technologies. How will they be assessed by regulators? Will they fall under GMO regulations in Europe or in the United States?
The vast majority of them basically are genetic editing techniques. They are not genetic modification in the classical sense. Most of them are mutagenesis-based techniques, so something that happens actually in nature. So we think they can be regulated according to the existing legislation. And we are pretty convinced that most of these techniques would fall out of the scope of this legislation, so it would be exempt from the application of certain regulatory requirements. But there are also some where indeed the majority opinion of experts is these techniques would fall under the requirements of a genetically modified organism.
What are the challenges, the potential risks, if we would have some form of an over-regulation? Or a regulation that's not qualify over, but a regulation similar to the one that we now have on GMOs?
I think then it's probably fair to say that these techniques will have no future in Europe.
There would be the threat of another brain and technology drain from Europe, as we have experienced in other technologies. And there could be a big barrier to trade.
Brains are mobile and genes are mobile. So there is a real threat that companies will take not only their researcher, but also their genetic material will go to other parts of the world and will start developing products probably also for other parts of the world. So they will concentrate on, for example, soybean or cotton or maize, so not necessarily on European crops like wheat or barley or say rape.
Within these TTIP negotiations, there is one of the objectives to harmonize regulatory approval processes, accepting, for example, food safety assessments that have been done in the United States for the approval process in the European Union, but also the other way around.
So the synchronized approval process for biotechnology is certainly the most well-known when we talk about regulatory matters, when we talk about harmonizing them and coming to cooperation and common rules. We have a clear demand that the European Commission and the EU member state come to terms how they want to deal with the approval process so that we are no longer being faced with these undue delays and non-scientific based processes that we are being faced with today. What we want is that we embrace in such an agreement forward-looking policies that minimize non-tariff trade barriers. Therefore, we have to move back to science-based regulatory systems. And last but not least, I think we have also not managed in the past to really communicate to our citizenship, to our fellow citizens, what we gained from trade, what we gained from globalization. And that's why we have this move against GMOs, why many consumers say they want regional and local food products instead of overseas products, and so on and so forth. And what we don't want as European grain traders is that the political movement towards produce less, stop trading, delay free trade negotiations continues. And we as traders certainly want to continue to do as much business as possible. Thank you very much for listening.
It's a pleasure to be here to talk to you all over lunch. It's kind of a strange setting. You don't even have to pretend like you're paying attention. You can just eat and not pay attention. So I'm going to do a couple things today at lunch. I'm going to talk to you just with some broad thoughts about labeling policies, mainly focused on the U.S. People that advocate on behalf of the labels, they say we should have labels, tend to say that people have a right to know, that if people in a democratic society say we should know this, that they should be able to know that. And there's an argument that it would give people more choice in the marketplace, let people choose different alternatives. You know, the counter arguments are that that it actually might lead to less choice, because if food companies are afraid of labeling, containing GMOs, then they'll try to source non-GMOs, and that could very well increase the price of food. You have this prisoner's dilemma problem that if you're Coke and Pepsi all of a sudden is advertising non-GMO, well, I don't want to lose market share to Pepsi, so I better change my label too. So both companies end up disadopting, even though they both prefer to be using the GM ingredient. I can imagine a world in which somebody is willing to make a principled argument that yes, we use biotechnology and we're proud to use it, proudly produced with genetically engineered ingredients. That may very well happen, and I hope food companies, if they have integrity and if that's what they really believe, they should be willing to make that argument.
In the supply chain, I have doubts that we will see a higher number of labeled food products, GMO-labeled food products. The retail industry seems to be concerned about labeled food products, and they try to maintain standards that are below the 0.9% threshold level. But we have to wait and see what is happening in 2 years when we have the next conference.